Hello everybody, I'm Eternal Reading. We're back again for another book review, and this book is Perfume by Patrick Suskind, or Suskind, however way you pronounce it. He's a German writer, and this is his second novel that was written, or he released it in 1985, and it's his most famous work, and he hasn't wrote much, in his whole writing career. I think he's wrote 6 books, maybe a play, and his last work was released in 2006. So he hasn't wrote much. He's not a prolific writer, but he's very. What I've read in this, I've been interested in reading his other work. He is a very good writer. It's a very good translation. And there's a wee picture of it. Oh, interested in the cover art. And what the story's about, you follow the life of a this man called Jean Baptiste Granuel. That's the way I pronounce it. Hopefully that's right. And it's his life story, and his life is unique because of his uniqueness of smell. He has this sense that's like unbelievable power of smell. Since the day an Ari was born, he could smell like a million times better than what humans or normally would smell. Is it like an animal smell? I don't know. The way a dog, I think he's even better. His sense of smell is so unique and so powerful. He uses his whole life, and he bases his whole life on his nose, finding things. The way he's portrayed as as I say, the book's set in 3 parts. In the first part, you've kind of got Granuel as a wee boy in Paris, and nothing like you imagine smell in Paris in the 1700s. It's not too pretty, but his nose is so powerful. He is smelling everything, and he knows everything. And he wants to log everything. That's his life. His life is his nose, and but he doesn't have a good life. Since the day Henri was born, his mother disowned him. Just as soon as he was born, she threw him in a rubbish pile with fish heads and guts. And lucky enough, his first scream was a scream of hatred, as Patrick describes. And since that first scream, his whole life has been hatred for everyone. And it's quite sad in a sense too. You feel sorry for him because, in the start anyway, because he has had no love. He doesn't have a smell of him, which is like strange at the start. You don't understand that. Everybody's scared of him every time people are around him as a baby. They think there's something wrong with him. He's evil, but it's because he has no smell. And even though humans don't really know what it is, they're off on him. They can't. It's like we can't smell it. I'm saying smell a lot here. We can't smell it, but the scent of our stuff's there. We can breathe it in, and we know that's the norm. But he can smell everything. He can smell the innocence of a child, or he smells like the evil of people. And whenever he gets to a certain age and he gets that smell of innocence, he based his whole life on it. But he can't. He doesn't know. He doesn't know how perfumers or perfumists, like they were called back in the 1700s, were able to catch smells, to put it in like a bottle. So he knew that he had to use his wits and his cunning to try and manipulate people, to try and get him the knowledge that he needs for his life's work, which is to create the greatest smell ever. And that's what his life goal is. And the first part is, as I say, he starts off as a wee baby and he's disowned, but he's very lucky. He falls in with this girl who had she can't smell anything, so to her he's just uh, a baby, and she has no love as well. And even from the very first minder, there you go, something goes. Even from the very first like person that looked after him, there was no love for him, nothing at all. This whole book, every character in this book, I find reading it, were selfish. There was not one character that wasn't selfish in it. The whole book is just full of selfishness. Not just Granuel, but every person that he meets, everyone, I find it's all selfishness. The only people that were innocent, the victims, which comes later on, the smell of innocence. And he could smell it, and they were the victims of Granuel, who was He's not a good guy. I'll say that. I know I'm saying there at the start you kind of feel sorry for him, but he is evil. He's an evil character. But what would been if people showed love to him? He was just used and treated badly. The character Madame Gallard was a person that he was with at the start, and she was nothing to him. Like, she just took him in, and just he was treated like bad. And because she couldn't smell, it says here, otherwise this numb woman felt nothing. She didn't care, but he was tough, and he picked on. And here was when he was in the wee dump. The cry emitted upon careful consideration, one might almost say upon mature consideration, was the newborn's decision against love. So as a wee baby, he's crying out against love. And he just wants life. And he was abomination from the start. He decided in favour of life out of sheer spite and sheer malice. So even since a wee newborn baby, he had hatred for everyone. So as I say, he's not a nice guy, and he's very clever too. But Granwell. But then you want to follow him. He's interesting. And when the story continues on, he meets a teacher, and he uses him to kind of teach him how to bottle perfume and smells. And so every character that he meets, and he meets a few in this journey, good few actually. But what Patrick was very good at doing was completing the story arc for each character. They're all well-rounded characters. Whenever they come into Granuel's life, and he's with these characters, even though there's no love there between any of them, and they're all flawed and selfish. Whenever Granuel moves on in his story, Patrick Suskind does a great job of finishing off their story arcs. It might only be a couple of pages, but they don't just come in and out of the pages and you forgot about them. He finishes off each one's story from all his teachers and for people he's met when he's later on in life, and his work colleagues and stuff. He's very good at rounding off every character, not just coming off the page and forgotten about. Get their whole sort of story. Even with the side characters, you're getting a start, finish, and end with each one, which I thought was actually very good. Being able to do that to round them all off as well. And as I say, in the story's set in 3 parts as well. So the first part you kind of have a coming of age deal, and you have the second part where it's just him kind of going in himself again. Hatred, doesn't know what he's living for. Doesn't want even to smell people. He gets that sort of place where he wants to just be away, and then on the third part, he's determined to do the acts of violence and the acts of murder to try and bottle the smell of innocence. And it's the perfect scent. But with these scents, he gives himself power, so he can manipulate people. He gets later on in the book, he becomes a very powerful individual. He is, to say, an evil individual. But what he can do with smells and manipulate different smells and put them on himself, even manipulates other characters' thoughts towards him, and it's very interesting. It's a I put Granuel, Jean-Baptiste Granuel, as a monster. He's a monster character, you know what I mean? He's got this superpower of scent, and he's got no love for anybody. But it's not just him. The whole book is just selfishness. I'll say that. That's what I felt. I can't. Only a few girls in it. Everybody else is just out for themselves. But he's a monster in a way where, see, if you're into your stories like Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, the Wolfman, all these sort of Hammer horror TV, these sort of famous horror stories like Jack the Ripper and all, these sort of like famous monster characters of men, evil men, and all these novels throughout all time, even going back to what do you call that, Beowulf, the big crazy child, the son of the dragon girl or something, monsters. These These characters are remembered in culture, and Granuel fits in nicely with them. I could see. I'm surprised there isn't more about him. Other stories or other people's took his idea and made him into his own character as well. Granuel. Maybe there is. Maybe I'm wrong. I know they made a film about it, but he's a well-rounded character, and there's a background to him, which is, he fits nicely in with all them other monsters, as I call them, your Dracula and all. Uh, if you're a fan of Gothic, it's good. It's a good sort of story. And if you're also a fan of, I don't know, maybe the weird and fantasy, because there is fantasy. It's set in the 1700s France, but it's also got fantasy elements with the power of it's like a magic. He has like a magic, and he's doing magic really in a way, and it's all just from his nose. But what made this book brilliant for me, like it's just perfect, is his writing style. I can't fault it. There might be a wee bit of overwritten with scents and all, like when he's working at his, doing like a perfume and it's throwing in all these flower names and all, but it comes off the page very well. You can literally smell the writing on the page. It's that well written. It's the scent, the smell he's describing as a writer is very good. You can smell it off the page. You know what I mean? That's maybe an over expression there about it, but it is very good writing style. And whenever you start to go into Granuel and you go in more into his life and he's older, you know Granuel, even if he's a hateful guy, he's a creep, really. He's not a nice guy, but you want to stick with him and see what's happening. Even the vile acts that he does or the selfish acts that he does. But it ain't just him, folks. See, when you read it, you'll see what I mean. It's not just him that's selfish. Every character has their own thing, their own flaws they're looking for. And it made me think, what would have happened if they showed him love when he was born? And Granuel, didn't have the smell of his own persona. He's trying to, if he did, would they all treat him different? And he also was looking for himself as well, because he doesn't have a scent that drives him nuts. It's like a bit of madness towards him. That's why he's trying to find the perfect scent. But even though he tries to find the perfect scent, he can't smell himself. He has no smell. He's different. He's unique. And it's an interesting read. Very good writing, style, prose ways. Maybe a lot of people might not like the words of like overdone with scent, making scent, making perfume, because he goes into detail of how he makes this, and putting in all these flowers and stuff, and maybe people getting a bit, fed up after a few pages, not much. And I say the book is only, well, in this publication, it was 260 pages, which is perfect for me. As I say, it was great from start to finish. I really enjoyed it. It's another great read. I've had a great reading year. I've had a great reading year so far, and this is another one, which I highly recommend. If you've never heard of it before, check it out. If you're wanting to even read it for the dark nights coming in, whenever it gets to more autumn time, and you've read Frankenstein and you've read Dracula, and you've read all these Gothic sort of horror tales, try Granuel. He'll not let you down. He's a character, And another thing I'll say before we finish this review, which I loved about the writing style, is it's quite dark humour too. There's parts where it goes very dark, but then the writing style can be comedic as well. But you might have to have a dark sense of humour to actually appreciate it. But it is a dark sense of humour throughout this, so it has that wee element as well, and I love that. I like a bit of dark humour. I'm not full in I don't really read comedy books, but when it's wee sort of dark humour and mixed in with like a horror or a weird, it's all right. I can live with that. So I can. But yeah, I've went on too long, so I'll not read much. I'll not read anything out for you this one. We're gonna give it a miss because I don't know if people are gonna be bored with that. But Perfume, definitely one to check out for the horror fans, fantasy, and the weird. That's the books I read anyway. But all the best, everybody, and I'll probably see you next week with another review. I don't know yet, but all the best.